Look, Jimmy, just if you can't do an intro for the first 30 seconds, and I'll do it. It's fine.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Welcome to Attack.
Your YouTube voice.
Oh, sorry. Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack on Productions. Today, I back up you once again by Jimmy.
Yes, sir.
And he's brought in his Soul Striker God deck that he played at, almost at Gen Con, at TCG Con this past weekend.
It's just Gen Con at this point.
Pretty much it is. You placed 20th, right?
Yeah, I placed 20th. There was some unfortunate time rule shenanigans that really hurt my placements, but I was still really happy with my performance. I think the deck did well. I think I played well. I had a lot of fun. Pretty much everybody I played there I knew at some point, so it was just like going and playing with the homies. It just happened to be at a larger tournament.
Yeah. So there's buttons above. Click them for different reason. But Jimmy, he's to get into his deck profile.
So I played Soul Striker. If you've been on the channel for a little while, you kind of know what this deck is going to be. There's some very minor changes between the profile we posted and then to now. But it's Soul Striker. You know what he does. He draws a ton of cards, untaps a ton of energy, just stupid advantage. And then with this variation of the list, you actually get use out of the auto to restand your Unison at the end of the turn, which is just like... It was just one of those throwaway things that nobody ever used until set 16 when we got the Great Priest Unison, and it just absolutely snaps the hell out of it.
I will say, I never once stood my Unison up.
Never once.
Never once.
That's the thing. Is like nobody thinks about this because you just attack with your Unison, with the baby Unison, you just leave it in rest mode because what's the point of untapping it? But it actually matters in this deck. So remember this auto. There was one match where I forgot it. Luckily, it didn't cost me the game, but I sat there and was like, would my opponent notice if I just like switch his to active mode without anybody looking? But luckily, I didn't need that. But here he is. This is just the key piece of the deck. Hi, dog. There's a dog next to me. It's a very cute dog, but I'm allergic to dogs, so I'm about to probably fucking die before this profile's over. So you ignore the activate main. It's a 3-drop Unison. It's perfect for this deck. It's just built for this deck, even though this was made for Great Priest. Activate battle. You switch this card to rest mode. You choose a god card in your energy, switch it to active mode, and then you choose a god card in your hand with an energy cost, with a combo cost of 1 and combo with it, which is just stupid value. Plus, you just rack up markers like crazy because you're doing this on your turn and your opponent's turn since he gets to restand at the end of every turn. And then auto, if your opponent plays battle card with an energy cost greater than the current energy, return it to the owner's hand. So this both gets around Deflect and Barrier because it does not choose the card and it also is not a counterplay. So this is just fantastic against U7. You drop this, and while this Unison's on board, they pretty much cannot play one of their boss monsters till either they clear off the Unison or they play into the late game, which nobody wants to get to 8 energy with U7. So this card is just clutching every single matchup. It's pure value. There's not a single matchup where this card is just bad in. But of course, you want to have some gods in the deck. One of my favorites is Beerus Combative Impulse. So he's a 2-drop double striker 16k, which is just already good. And then when he comes in, he taps down one of your opponent's cards. And then when he attacks and KOs a battle card, he will draw one, restand himself, and then bottom deck one of your opponent's life. So while this is like a fantastic skill, it was not superly relevant over the course of the event. The best thing that I found to do with this guy is to drop him early and tap down one of your opponent's like weenie searchers or whatever. Swing into it and then force your opponent to combo out a bunch of cards because they don't want to lose the advantage or lose the what's the word I'm looking for?
Life?
Or yeah, they don't want to lose the life, of course, but they don't want to give you all the advantage this card gives, so they take the advantage gamble and end up comboing out cards where I only invested 2 energy and playing this card, but. He's fantastic in some matchups, not so much in others. I usually end up boarding one or sideboarding one out in some matchups. But still, he's good to go into the energy because you do need a multicolor god early because you don't want to lose on the energy scaling. It's a monster, the Eliminator. If you play blue-yellow or if you played Soul Striker, you know what this card does. I was originally running them out of 2 of because I only own 2. Thank you, Bancroft and Fluff, for letting me borrow the other 2 for the event. But I'm fully convinced that you just need 4 of these if you want the deck to run at full power. It counterplays a 4 or less battle card coming in. He has been eroded. It doesn't matter. This card's still busted. He's just a check land. And also, he has auto that taps down one of your opponent's battle cards and draws you a card. So, like, even against cards with Deflect, you just slam this and just tap it down and draw a card and make it a non-threat. So, while he's great for hitting 4 or lesses, great for hitting floodgates, stuff of that nature, he's also just really good against boss monsters. And plus, being an indestructible body is actually relevant. Even though he's only at 5,000, you could just turn this sideways and then just combo out your entire hand on him. And then what is your opponent going to do against an indestructible attacker? Especially with your Grand Prix Unison, since you get to free combo with a god, you can just turn him into a 15k by free comboing. So, just insanely good card. Bandai, please reprint this so I don't have to spend $50 on a single card. More gods, Apocalypse Schemer. This is just the charge target. If it's in my opening hand, it goes straight into the energy. We do run Zeno super combo, so if I need him later on, I can just pick him right back up. But he's a Deflect double striker. At the end of the turn, you get to untap a multicolor energy that is not on the turn that he's played, so he just gets value if the longer he stays out. And then you get to spam out 4 shadow tokens with blocker. They do have 5k combo power, so if you're going for game, you could just drop this guy, swing, and then combo out your entire tokens on a double strike. So card is just, it's an Abuni side grade, but it's still absolutely fantastic. There, yeah, perfect. We got to get the foil ones. I actually forgot to ask to borrow foils for this card before the event. I was trying to bling out the deck, so if I did happen to hit top table, everybody would know. More Goku Blacks, Unforeseen Darkness, just a pure advantage card. 2 energy if you have a multicolor energy. You at the end of the turn you draw 2, discard 1, and then untap a blue or yellow energy. And he's a 15k body, just pure advantage. There's never a bad time to play this card. You want to see him early, so that you can get your draws and get your hand set up to go up against like the crazy turn 2 aggro list. Like I ran into a Kitku list that just popped off on turn 2, and if I did not have the right cards in hand, I would have just straight died to it. U7 can pop off very quickly, so seeing this guy early and being able to fatten up your hand for those turn 2 decks is really nice. A kind of a meta call card that just was not really relevant at all. Calamity Challenger. So he's Deflect blocker. He plays for 1 if you have 3 or more energy, and you draw a card, which is just nice. That's usually just all he was just a 15k body that draws a card. But for 1 energy, that's still not bad. But the reason I chose Calamity Challenger over what I originally had, which was the one-drop Basils, the dual attacker, if your opponent has 5 or more energy in rest mode. The reason I chose this card is for the Trunks Vegeta matchup, which I did not see all weekend. So what makes this card good in that matchup is he plays by skill, and he's cheap, and he replaces himself. So in that matchup, if they have like a Trunks and a Poutine on field, you could pay 1, drop him, trigger Trunks to tap him down, and then they would proc the Poutine to tap him down as well. So in my mind, I read this card as 1 energy, draw 1 card, negate the skills of 2 of your opponent's battle cards in that matchup, which is just insane value. And then at worst, he's a 15k body that replaces himself. He does have blocker, but I would have much rather had Basil in my list. Now knowing that I wasn't going to run into a Trunks Vegeta matchup, but you know, hindsight 2020.
I don't think there was a lot there actually.
There wasn't a lot. Jake, I know Jake played it, and I think there was like 1 or 2 other people. So
and Jake was the one who topped 16 with it.
Exactly. Shout out to Jake. It played amazing this past weekend. But this card, depending on if you're planning on taking this deck to your locals or whatever, I would say just swap 2 of these out for Basil and then round out the numbers on something else with the 3rd one. Because unless like Trunks Vegeta is really popular in your locals. Couple of tech options: Venomous Fist Lavender. Block a barrier, deflect. You get to choose 2 of your opponent's energy, switch them to rest mode. Negate this, go for the duration of the game. So he's barrier, deflect. He's going to stick around for a while. My favorite thing to do with this guy is to just slam him on like turn 4 if I don't have a better play and just let my opponent sweat over him. Because as long as my opponent invests cards and energy into removing him, it's just as good as me activating main on him. So, you know, like, the only deck that can remove it easily without having to worry much about it is like Gogeta Xeno with their warping of a barrier card. And that's only one energy, one card out of hand. You know, they're going to have cards in their warp. So, like, the value is not there in that matchup, but almost every single other matchup, this card is just pure value. If you pay 4 energy for it, you're getting 4 energy of value no matter what. So, he's really nice. He's just a tech option. It's more of like a bluff. You just put him out there and make your opponent sweat. Something that will make your opponent sweat and you're just going to kill your opponent with it. Negative energy explosion, deflect, double strike, barrier, blocker. It just has every good keyword skill for no damn reason. You ignore the auto because it doesn't matter. But the activate battle, spirit boost 1, you get to restand him and then mill your opponent 1, which is kind of relevant. There was a couple matchups where I got really, really close to milling my opponent out and they had to play funky around the idea that they only had like 3 cards left in their deck. But he's a 20k dual attack double striker essentially, and then on your opponent's turn you could just spirit boost him back up to block with him again, and then you can spirit boost it just keeps spirit boosting on, you know, every single turn to get those mills and those double strikes or blocks. The card is just absurd. I feel like maybe this activate main / battle should be locked to a Shadow Dragon leader because it's almost just too good in certain matchups. Secret ID, you need to fill clearance. This deck kind of lacks wide clearing, especially for a bunch of weenies. So being able to just freely throw this guy out there, get a 25k attacker out of it, and then wipe a field is just huge. One of your main win cons, Kefla Lightning Speed. This card has caught people off every single game I've played her in. She's energy exhaust, double striker, blocker, a rise for 2 blue and 1 yellow. And when this card is played, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and place it at the bottom of the owner's deck. This is just catches people off guard because they don't expect blue to have such a what's the word I'm looking for, like a response mid battle. And especially in this deck, since you get to untap so much energy with your Great Priest Unison and Sensu Beans and your Zeno super combos, like, you could go from 0 to 3 energy and dropping her in one battle.
I've seen you do that twice, I think, from 0 to 3.
Yeah, it is absolutely disgusting. And this card doesn't stop there. It's like activate main, limit 1. If your opponent has 3 or more energy, you choose 1 card in your hand, discard it. This card gains dual attack for the turn, which is just absurd to 30k dual attack double striker. But if you discard a copy of her, you get to draw 2 cards and then tap one of your opponent's cards, and that's any card. You could tap down energy, battle cards, blockers, blocker unison, whatever. You tap down a field card if you really need to. This card is just, it's just insane. And for 3 energy, especially with this unison, since you can free combo with a god that's blue-yellow, it's just dummy good. Like, this card is just a problem if it comes down, no matter what your opponent's playing. Moving on into just staple cards, it's Apes. You're playing Soul Striker. There's some turns where you just don't have anything to do with your energy, and what's better than drawing 2 cards with those energy? And then you just get that energy right back with your leader, so this card is just, you probably should run it at a 4 of. I just run it at a 3 of because I like running tech options. A card that you have to run 4 of, Sensu Bean. There's just no deck that Sensu Bean is not good in if you're playing blue. Very rarely can you go down a Sensu Bean. Card's just too fucking busted. For our super combo spread, 2 Sacred Disbeliefs. This card's just almost like a double negate, even though it's not a negate. You combo with it, combo out of attack, tap down something else, make it a non-threat. It's also a blue-yellow card that you can use for a rival. It is a god card, so if you have to charge it, you can. This card is just beautiful. It's amazing and perfect. And the only reason I'm not running 4 is because I like running 2 Zenos. At worst, this card is a 1-drop cantrip. At worst. But if you have 5 or less life, you just pick up one of your energy, add it to your hand, then you lay a card from your energy. So you could just untap an energy with this, like in your energy, you just add it back to your hand and immediately slam it back down. And it's also part of the combo going from 0 to 3 energy for Kefla. Because you untap with your Unison, you can Sensu Bean back up. If you have 2 Sensu Beans, you just double Bean. If you have 2 Zenos, you double Zeno. If you have a Bean and a Zeno, then you just do Bean and a Zeno. It's just gross. It's really good super combo. It's not as good as it is in like SS4 Vegeta, where you don't get to choose what you charge sometimes. It's still just fantastic in this list because you can charge like one of your apes and then pick it up later on when it's actually going to be relevant. Negate package, Dimension Magic, you know what this card does, don't need to say much about it. One of the absolute MVPs all weekend was Super Saiyan God Son Goku Miraculous Transformation. Deflect, unique, triple strike barrier. It does not need triple strike. I don't know why they did that. Counterattack, negate the attack. Reduces down to 3 for each of your opponent's energy. And then while he's in rest mode, your opponent's battle cards cannot attack your leader card. They can attack everywhere else, and their unison cards and leader cards can attack into your lead. But while he's in rest, your opponent's battle cards pretty much just have to swing at him, unless they want to deal with the unison. But I feel like a lot of people, even though they read the card and I told them, they still see this as they cannot attack the leader card, period. Because there was so many times where I'd be at like 1 life, this card would be in rest mode, and my opponent would swing their leader straight into this card instead of just going for my last life. And I'm not going to complain because that won me a couple of games that I probably should have lost, but this card is just absurd. It's a problem when it comes down, and most of the time your opponent's going to spend way too many resources into dealing with this. One of the grossest plays I got to do over the weekend was I was at 3 energy, slammed this guy. My opponent swung into him with, I think it was their 20k dual attack Trunks from Trunksino. Swung into this card, comboed out up to like 45,000 and left like 2 cards in their hand. And then I did the 0 to 3 energy and dropped Kefla and just wiped the Trunks. And that was just one of those like, all right, let's just go to game 2 situations. So this card is just absurd. He overperformed. I think 2 is still good because you can't play this until turn 3. And he's also unique. So by the time that you play one and clear it off, you'll probably have the other one in hand by that time. Just because of how much you draw. So I think 2's fine. For more negates, Oceanus, this card is just absolutely fantastic in the meta right now. Basically a topo, but it's 4 cards off the top of the deck instead of 2 cards from the hand, and she's a blocker. Not very relevant in the KP matchup because you just counter and they blow it out. But for wide aggro, especially U7, they're milling themselves. Like, they're already putting themselves on a time clock. When you drop this, your opponent's just pretty much has to pass unless they want to take the Oceanus challenge, and usually they fail on that gamble in most situations. But blue just really doesn't have a fantastic floodgate. I know Heroic Prospect exists. That's in the sideboard. I'll get to that in a little bit. But blue just doesn't have a lot of really good floodgates. So having a colorless one to throw into a deck is just really nice. Especially one as good as Oceanus.
I would say the actual floodgates blue has are really pricey for a lot of blue decks.
Exactly. And this just being 2 energy, you're Soul Striker, you're going to have 2 energy. There's never a time where you're going to have to think about leaving energy open for this card. 1 Shield's Army. I love these cards. I love all of the Spawna blocker token negates, but it just did not feel good in Soul Striker. Maybe with a little bit more testing, I might want to bump this up, but I felt like 1 was enough. Like, when I seen it, it was good. When I didn't see it, I didn't miss it. Godzilling techniques. It's Godzilling. There you go.
I just played 1 as well.
Yeah, there he goes. He played 1 in his Soul Striker list, so he feels the exact same way. Godzilling. So in my original list, I only had 2. And literally for the 3 days leading up to the event, I was like, I need a third godzilling because I'm going to fuck myself because I'm only running 2. And I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to wish I had a third godzilling. I don't know why. Never felt that way before. And I'm kind of glad I did because like godzilling was relevant in every single game I played. I never played 3 of them in a game, but like I did see 2 in every game, and I think maybe bumping this up to 3 may have helped that, and could have won me a couple games. Godzilling's just one of the best counterplays in the game. There's not much to say about it. 2 Golden Avengers. This is just a menace in blue counter. Shouldn't exist even at 5 energy. And it would have been just good enough if this was just a 30k single strike, but he's also a triple striker, and he draws a card and then bottom decks a card ignoring barrier for no damn reason. This card's just absurd. It basically just once you get to turn 5, it's your opponent's just scared to negate because they're just going to get blown out by this guy. 2 FDC. This card, I usually always run just a 1-of Champa in every single list because I think it's just a card you have to run. But the reason I bumped it up to 2, it was at 3. I bumped it back down to be able to board in another godzilling technique. But he's a god, and the Grand Priest Unison does not discriminate on the color of the god card you get to combo with. So you can pretty much every leader swing I was swinging at with this set of 3 of was swing lead, draw a card, untap 2, +1 on the Unison, untap an additional energy, and combo a further destruction Champa for 25k double strike. And it cost me like almost nothing, which is just absurd value. I do think there might be a version of this list where you just go wild and you just run 4 Champas and just fucking swing big body like 30k skilluses and then drop double strikes on it. Like, I think there's a version of that deck that can exist with this Grand Priest Unison, but I kind of want to play a different color for a little while, so I might come back to this idea. But Champa, it's good. You should run them at least 1 of. And then Baby Hatch, because it's blue. I'm not going to say anything else about this card. This card needs to be fucking banned. It's broken. So on to the sideboard. Very rarely do we see sideboards on this channel, but this was a big event, so we actually spent a little bit of time on our sideboards. And by a little bit of time, I mean I just put the cards I always put in my sideboards. Black Mass Saiyan, it's just relevant in so many matchups. This was another one for Trunks Vegeta. You slam this and your opponent just has to get rid of it to be able to play their deck. It's decent in U7 in some scenarios, especially the Scions variant. Really, anything. I played a TN. Shout out to Brandon Bowling, the homie. I played a TN, and this card was super relevant because they couldn't play any of their tokens off their Awakening unless they wanted to drop 6 cards. So he was the MVP. He was pretty much sideboarded in every single match that I played. Great against Truck Xeno because one of their early mill strategies or warp strategies is the 1-drop Gohan and Gyotens. So you just slam this and it just basically blocks them off of being able to build their warp quickly in the early game. For hit control, Demoral Ritual in hand. It only come in one matchup. It happened to be the TN matchup. I did get it off and then it just got freezed. So I got my draws off of it, so he did his job. Hand control is just a problem, and you just have to run them. I probably would have run him at a 3 of if we were in a more green-heavy scenario. One of my favorite techs that I run was Toa Twisted Sister. She's a counterplay. Play this card. When this card is played, you draw 1, then shuffle up to 1 card from your opponent's drop area into their deck. What deck can you think of that puts a bunch of shit in their drop area? This card just, in certain situations, can just absolutely fuck a U7 player out of the game. So a lot of the U7 players that I tested against, they would like to just pitch their secret rare into the drop area early and then just grab it back with their leader ability. So one of my favorite things to do is just wait for them to pitch their secret rare or mill it and then just drop 1 and just shuffle it back into the deck, and it's like, okay, find it again. and then it basically just makes the Secret Rare a non-threat until they either draw into it. It does shuffle, so you can just shuffle it straight to the top of the deck and put it back in their hand for free. But I'm willing to take that gamble. This card has won me more games than it's lost me, so I definitely like boarding it in on the U7 matches. It's also good against like green hand control because you can just warp out the Ribrians. Or not warp out, but you know what I mean. 2 Broken Seals. This card, if you know your matchups, this card is just broken. Haha, Broken Seal. He's Deflect. When he's played, you just Pithing Needle a card, so nothing to worry about.
8-drop Vegeta.
Yeah, 8-drop Vegeta, 8-drop Goku, 8-drop Trunks, whatever you want to call. Like, it's basically just turns off boss monsters. And something else nice about it is, in a lot of situations, maybe you're in the blue matchup or something like that where they're bottom decking a lot of your cards, or any situation like that, you can just drop this and then activate main to be able to shuffle your deck. You just look for a Dark Dragon Ball, whiff, shuffle your deck. Easy peasy. 2 Heroic Prospect. This card just was not relevant in the slightest. It come in during the U7 matchup. I did not see it because the game was over before they dropped any of their big boys. So this card just loses value the later in the game it goes. I think it's still really good against stuff like Xeno Gogeta. But to get the reduced cost, you have to have a Blue Unison in play. And since you don't board a Blue Unison until turn 3, if you're going like second, this card just loses like 90% of its value. And just becomes like a 1-drop 15k body, negate. This was for the mirror match if I was running into another Great Priest player or any deck that plays or relies on a Unison. So like Gohank's Unison is a problem against this deck, and this card just basically says Gohank's Unison can't exist for right now. It's a Deflect Double Striker. Your opponent cannot activate counter skills when this is attacking Unison or battle cards, so it's great against clearing some threats. And then auto, when it removes a marker from one of your opponent's Unis cards, you just negate that Unis card skill until the end of your opponent's next turn. So pretty much once this guy is out, it just turns off a Unison. And then activate main for 2 energy. If your opponent has 2 or more energy, you have a total of 2 or more blue battle cards in play. Play this card from your hand. This is relevant because the Zamasu is indestructible. It's not going anywhere. You're probably going to have a Beerus or another Goku Black in play. So this guy is just pretty much live at all times. And at worst, he's a 2-drop double strike 20k that has Deflect. 2 Esky, she didn't come in at all. She probably would have been relevant, but I'm fine with my opponent playing some battle cards on my turn. It's not that big of a deal, and I don't think this taxes them enough, at least in this variation of the deck. I think it's great in stuff like SS4 Vegeta and Android 16, where you're going to be taxing your opponent with like play and response, where this deck is more so like wait for my opponent to make an opening and then I'm going to kill you. Taxing them throughout the game doesn't really help that. And then for mirror matches and games that are going to go long, Android 17 should be in the main board, but I played him once in like my 100 games that I've played with Soul Striker. So I just felt like a second Golden Avenger was just a better option overall. This did not get cited in. If I played like a Hatchyak or a mirror match, it definitely would have been cited in because this card, opponents at 2 energy, you win the game. Easy. But that is it. That is my Soul Striker list I played. Like I said, I'm very happy with the performance. There was the new time rules kind of suck. I'm not a big fan of them. I do like that not every single game ends with a draw, and I like that there's a clear definitive winner. But I do think there's some things that could be ironed out with this format to make it a little less frustrating losing games based off of just you can't finish your game 2. But still had a lot of fun. Everybody was cool. Did not have a bad time at all over the entire weekend.
Well, that'd be to take your opportunity and keep mine. Just buttons down below on the screen. Read the cards, know your place, and fluff out.